Before we begin, I encourage you all to like and subscribe, as your support is really appreciated. I also recommend you check out the BCA for any local pool leagues in your area, and also check out Inside Pool Magazine, as they have some great billiard content. And lastly, visit jflowerscues.com for some great products at great prices. Now on to the video. Philly Fingers here, comparing a Jflowers cue to a Predator cue. The Predator cue that I'll be using is the 9K1. All in black and pretty straightforward. We're not going to get into the aesthetics, we're just going to look at the performance. So this is a unilock. I'm also going to be using a Revo shaft at a 12.4mm and an extension. The cue, the shaft, and the extension are all available separately through the Predator site. The Jflowers cue I'll be using is the JF90-10. This also can come with a carbon fiber shaft, and I'll have a 12.6mm tip. This uses a radial pin and also comes with an extension. Here the cue, the shaft, the extension, and even a case all comes together from the Jflowers website. I won't be looking at any of the aesthetics, any of the superficial things like overlays or grips. I'm only going to be focusing on performance. I'll be judging the performance in terms of the tip, the balance, the sound, deflection, and how it shoots. To keep it short and simple, I'm going to give you a direct answer on which cue I feel performs better and why. Beginning with the tip, I have to admit I switched the victory tip on my Revo shaft. I don't know anyone, any teammate, any colleague, any opponent who's ever kept their victory tip on their shaft. The Revo just does not have a good tip, so the first thing I had to do was sadly remove the tip and put a Kamui or anything different. The victory tip just is not a good tip. To that point, on the Jflowers cue, it comes with a Moray tip, and I've never had any problems with it. So the first thing is the tip, and I give the edge to Jflowers. In terms of balance, the weight I was using is an 18 ounce for both cues, and the weight and the balance on both were perfect. So in this case, I rank them both as equal. In terms of sound, what I'm referencing here is what it sounds like when you strike the ball. Where with the Predator, it was like an aluminum bat. You hear a little bit of a ding, it kind of vibrates a bit, but the sound on the Jflowers was more of a solid thud, kind of what a traditional wood cue would sound like. So in this case, I give the edge to Jflowers. In terms of deflection, I try to test out the deflection by doing an extreme cut shot. Going with the Jflowers first, aiming extreme left, well, what I found is I missed the ball completely, so there was definitely some deflection. I calculate about half a tip of deflection. Now as I reset and I try the same experiment with the Predator and the Revo shaft, what I find is on my very first attempt, going extreme left, aiming at the exact same point as I did with the Jflowers cue, I'm able not only to make the ball, but I make it easily. This showed me that the Revo shaft had practically zero deflection, if that's even possible. So I then tried the Jflowers one more time, and now this time I'm going to compensate for that deflection. While I compensate for that deflection and I'm able to hit the ball, I don't make the shot, but I see that I can compensate if need be. But I still give the edge easily to Predator. Now in terms of just shooting a straight in shot from distance, I set up two balls far away from each other, and using the Jflowers first, I'm easily able to make the ball with no problem. After now trying the exact same shot with the Predator cue, I see that I can make the ball again very easily with no problem. If anything, the Predator probably gave me a little bit more draw on my shot because I hit a little bit lower on the cue ball. With straight shots, no problem, so I would say these are pretty equal. I now look into making cut shots. So going with the Predator first this time, I now try to make a cut shot where I place the ball on the spot and the cue ball on the opposite spot. So going spot to spot with a traditional cut shot, Predator, no problem. I'm able to make that cut shot, and the deflection, again, isn't even a factor here. I now try the exact same experiment, but with the Jflowers. So here I'm thinking perhaps the deflection might be an issue, but also I might be also already compensating for that deflection. So again, no problem. So I would say this one also rates as equal. Next, I set up a draw shot. So I want to see how much action and how much draw I can get out of this. Now I'm not going for an extreme draw, I'm just going for a basic standard control draw. Using the Predator first, I'm able to draw all the way back to the rail and a little bit out. Now doing the same experiment with the Jflowers cue, again I try to draw to the same distance, and what I find here is I end up drawing just a little bit less. I still get draw, but I fall short of the rail. So this shows me I'm not getting as much draw, and perhaps it's the tip, right? Perhaps it's because it's a 12.4 versus a 12.6. So I give the edge to Predator. Now testing out the banks, going with the Predator first, I put a ball on the spot and the cue ball directly behind it, and I'm able to bank into the side pocket with no problem. Now setting up the exact same shot, I'll try the Jflowers cue. So again, perfectly lined up together, I will bank this into the side pocket. What I find is in both first attempts, I'm able to make the ball easily. So no problems banking here, so I rate these as equal. So overall, to recap, the cues performed both really well. I don't think you could go wrong with either one. They're very, very similar. There isn't one thing that stands out so much from one to the other that says, I'm gonna play so much better using this versus that. Now, the only thing I would say is there is a slight advantage in terms of deflection with the Predator, but it's not groundbreaking because as you easily swap out to the Jflowers and you compensate for that slight deflection, you're able to make all the same shots. So it's really preference, right? Everything just comes down to preference. And as you see here, I started shooting a few balls with the Jflower and had no problem. When I switch over to the Predator, I actually missed my first shot. And I miss it because again, I was so used to that little bit of a deflection. But then the second I compensate, I make every other shot, right? So again, it's just about preference and getting used to the shaft that you're comfortable with. Now my personal preference, if I had to pick one, I would probably choose the Jflowers, only because I kind of like that little bit of deflection because I'm so used to old-fashioned wooden cues. That plus the way it sounds just feels more true, so that's what I would choose. That's my take on Predator versus Jflowers. Till next time.